Hello everybody, it's John12 back here again with another video, and today I bring you another top 5. Now I know I'm a little late to this. Yes, Mondays are usually the day I post my top 5 list, but I was kind of indisposed at the time of yesterday, so I was incapable of posting it. But today, let's just get right down into it. Today I give you my top 5 music documentary movies. For the last several weeks I've been dedicating my top 5s to music and music movies, and now I give you my music documentaries. I love documentaries. I love enjoying and sitting down and understanding musicians and the process of making music, and just understanding your heroes a little bit more through documentaries and trying to understand where they were coming from and how they changed the music scene or the genre that they were making music for at the time. And of course, with all top 5s, my top 5s are subjective. It's my personal thoughts. It's my personal list. These are the specific documentaries that I personally think are the best in their specific genre, and I personally feel that if anybody watched them, you guys or anybody who's watching would have an amazing time enjoying and watching the documentary that I've named. Nonetheless, I'm going to stop rambling and let's just get right into it. Coming on number 5 has to go down to Anvil, the story of Anvil. Now, for me personally, I had zero idea. Before this documentary came out, well, before I watched it rather, I had zero idea who Anvil was. I didn't even know the band even existed. It was completely obscurity for me. And when you get into the documentary, you just get thrown into this world of just these guys who blew up at a specific point in time, and just incorporated just a specific style to heavy metal music, and of course changed the scene, and of course inspired musicians onward to really create bands and do their own thing, like Metallica and so on and so forth. And then they kind of just blew up for their own good and then just died out, and just went into entire obscurity. And the documentary basically tells their story of fame and then obscurity, and then and during like the dark years of like trying to come back into the spotlight and trying to basically become famous again, and just trying to make a hit record. And essentially the specific documentary for the most part is essentially them going on tour, a European tour if I'm not mistaken, and just the hijinks and the incredible, depressing misadventures that happen, and also the personal turmoil of the specific band members and how they deal with each other for so many years, and how they're still together and still trying to make a living off of making music and being a rock star, even at their ages now. And it's just an incredible story. I mean, for coming from a guy who was not an Anvil fan, I personally didn't know who the fuck these guys were. I had no idea. I never listened to one song of theirs. But then I saw this documentary, and I was cultivated. It was just so compelling of a story, just witnessing these two guys who started a band together, who quit, basically their lives just to pursue music as a lifestyle. It's just a very compelling story that I definitely hope a lot of people check out. Coming to number 4 on my list has to go to Beats, Rhymes, and Life, The Travels of A Tribe Called Quest. Now, of course, I'm a huge fan of A Tribe Called Quest. I love their music, and I love the majority of their albums. And of course, this documentary specifically basically documents the specific band members, their rise to fame, and of course their fall, and essentially their disbandment, and of course how their personal turmoil kind of destroyed the reputation of their band, and kind of how a band, a rap group, a hip-hop group who specifically made iconic, amazing music and kind of rechanged the genre, how their personal issues with each other kind of destroyed the continuity and continuation of their band and their music, and how that personal turmoil kind of still infects their personal issues and continuing to tour together. And of course, as of right now, as far as I know, I don't think A Tribe Called Quest personally tours again, and you can tell basically from this specific documentary that I guess they just have so many personal issues. It's just interesting to get, because as a fan, you want to imagine a band specifically loving each other, but of course it's a complete 180 of that because it's reality. And of course you get to see, like, obviously from, day one to now of like specifically the rise and fall of fame. That's essentially the documentary of A Tribe Called Quest, and it's just very interesting to just understand what each specific member, what each specific person brought to the table, how they kind of changed the genre, kind of recreated the genre, kind of just, you know, made one of the greatest last rap albums of all time, and essentially, or hip hop albums of all time, and essentially just their expansion, and of course Onward, and how they kind of have gone their own separate ways, and how they still try to make A Tribe Called Quest work and still, you know, live again. But of course, because of their own personal turmoil, it doesn't really go that way. But of course, the documentary itself is very well done. It's fucking awesome. It's very well directed, and it's just very interesting to get a little piece of what A Tribe Called Quest really did, and how it continues to change a lot of perspective in the genre today. But nonetheless, moving off of that, going to number 3 on my list has to go to George Harrison, Living in the Material World. It was essentially an HBO documentary, and it was split into 2 parts, and both parts were directed by the man himself, the legend himself, Martin Scorsese. And of course, Martin Scorsese documents the entire life of George Harrison, from basically obscurity to his rise in Beatlemania and everything afterwards, and the incredible life that he lived. And it's just so compelling. I don't want to spoil it because the documentary itself is very long, but it's definitely worth the watch. I mean, each specific part in this documentary is just, you know, just chronicling his incredible life. I mean, you wouldn't think. I mean, like, when you think of the Beatles, you think, oh, Paul McCartney, John Lennon. Yeah, John Lennon. He was the legend. But George Harrison lived such an incredible lifestyle. Like, his life, the way they, you know, the way they documented it for the specific movie is so amazing. Like, the life that he lived alone outside of Beatles and after the Beatles is incredible. It's just amazing to see, like, how this guy lived an incredible life with this specific band, changed everything, changed the music scene forever, and then just went on to do his own thing and didn't give a shit about everything else, just wanted to live his own life, and he did it. And he did an incredible job on it. It's an amazing documentary. And of course, it's Martin Scorsese. There's no wrong in it. So, and of course, Martin Scorsese's also done plenty of documentaries in the past. So he obviously knows what he's doing. And it's Martin Scorsese. So definitely worth the watch. And of course, coming to number 2 on my list was very difficult because it's very recent. And personally, for me, when it comes to a movie that, you know, I personally want some time to pass for it to really, you know, dive into me and really get a really compelling story out of it and a very good perspective on the music, the band, the artist, the musician, everything that goes along with that documentary. But because it was so cultivating, so compelling, it's just giving me such a humongously different perspective that I had prior, I just had to put it. And of course, number 2 goes down to Kurt Cobain, Montage of Heck. Of course, it's a recent documentary. I actually did a review on this specific documentary. Go back to my channel to check it out if you're interested. But nonetheless, of course, Brett Morgan, of course, teamed up with HBO Documentaries and, of course, documented based off specific mixtape titled Montage of Heck that Kurt Cobain created for himself, and basically used that as the catalyst and the template for making possibly the definitive Kurt Cobain documentary. It's definitely amazing. I love it to death. It definitely gave me a different perspective. This was definitely the first ever music documentary that I have ever witnessed that changed the perspective of how I felt about a specific musician. And I don't know if it's good or bad, but I love that it did it. You know, because before I watched this documentary, I was like a Nirvana maniac. Like, all through high school, it was all about Nirvana. I loved Nirvana to death. I was a humongous Kurt Cobain follower and what have you. You know, I fucking, you know, I did a whole bunch of crazy shit back in those days, and I was obsessed with Nirvana's music, and Kurt Cobain was God, basically, to me. And then after watching this documentary, he basically humanizes Kurt and just shows us a real story, not just a false story, or just, you know, some, you know, stories that, you know, various other kind of people talk about, or just a story that's been rehashed and rehashed based off words that Kurt may or may not have said. And of course, it's just a real, actual story chronicling his life from day one to his rise to fame, and it doesn't really incorporate his suicide, which I think was a good decision because, I don't think there's any good that comes from talking about the death of a musician, especially something as public as his was. So I feel like everything that has to deal with from day one to his rise to fame and his kind of fall into drug addiction, I think was good. But without spoiling any other way, I definitely still continue to this day recommend that you check out Kurt Cobain Montage of Heck. You will not, be sorry that you saw it. It's definitely a very amazing, well done documentary. Definitely check it out. And it was very hard to put this on the list because originally I really wanted to put About His Son because, it's like a 50-50 thing for me. Like Kurt Cobain Montage of Heck is definitely much more. It's better directed. It definitely has more things in it that makes more of a compelling story. But About His Son is a little bit more positive, and it's basically all Kurt all the time, just him talking. So that's kind of why I like it a little bit more. But nonetheless, rather, if I had to pick a specific documentary, it has to be Kurt Cobain Montage of Heck. But nonetheless, I'm going to skip the specific honorable mentions because obviously I've been talking for far too long. But coming up to number 1 on my list has to go to Sound City, which was directed by the man himself, Dave Grohl. I love freaking Sound City. It's an amazing documentary. I mean, for a first time director to make an amazing, compelling documentary like this one, I have to give 100% full credit and kudos to Dave Grohl. He did an amazing job directing this documentary. And of course, for those of you who don't know what this documentary is, it's basically Dave Grohl chronicling the early days, the golden age, all the way to the end of the amazing Sound City, which of course is this place that, thousands of amazing musicians went to essentially record amazing, classic, iconic albums, from just pick a band and it's been there. You just pick a band and it's been there. It's freaking, you have Nirvana, Tom Petty, Nine Inch Nails. Just pick a band, it's been there, and the freaking album's been recorded there, and it's iconic and legendary. And it's all because of that specific recording studio. And Dave Grohl did an amazing job directing this specific documentary, and it's hands down my favorite documentary to date. I mean, like, no other documentary has really topped it, and I think Dave Grohl as a director, I think that's something that he should start pursuing, and I just loved how he just knows, he's such a huge fan of music that he just knows how to document it. He's just such a fan of music that he understands it to the point that he can document it perfectly more than any other person, because most of the documentaries are obviously fully focused on the man, not the music, which I think is kind of like the downfall of most documentaries. It's not a bad thing, but it's not particularly a good thing, specifically. So I think it's just great that, for a music documentary, you actually focus on the legitimacy of the music, the great, amazing music that we all know and love. And this documentary does that perfectly. I just hope Dave Grohl directs more stuff. I mean, I'm just saying, after watching this and after watching like Sonic Highways on HBO, tell me that you don't want to see him like do more, music documentary type stuff. But nonetheless, moving off that, that's pretty much the end of my top 5 list of music documentary movies. Hope you guys enjoyed. What did you think about my list? Let me know in the comments below. What is your personal list of top 5 music documentaries? What's a documentary that you saw that really changed your perspective on a specific band, musician, artist, or specific album? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, as a quick note before I end this video, I actually do plan on bringing a return to Dragon Ball Z on my top 5 segment. Yes, I did state that, I kind of ended the top 5s for DBZ. My DBZ top 5s were done on my YouTube channel, and they were going to move to my podcast. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to have it on both. I'm going to have top 5s on my podcast and on my YouTube channel, because for me personally, I personally forget what I've done prior because I don't listen to my podcast on a daily basis. After it's done, that's pretty much the end of me listening to it. So I forget what I've done in the past. So, but the good thing about having it on my YouTube channel is that I have a thumbnail, so I have a form of reference of what I've done in the past. You know what I mean? So essentially, there will be a return. There will be a reckoning. There will be a return to my DBZ top 5. So hope you guys enjoyed. And of course, it only makes sense. I mean, like, realistically, my DBZ top 5s are my most viewed and most popular top 5s on my YouTube channel in general, so I might as well just bring it back. I'm going to bring it all back. I'm taking it back. Nonetheless, comment below. Let me know what you personally think about that. Subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already. Hope you guys enjoyed. This has been John 12.